Hello, welcome to Grandstand Therapy. I will be your therapist, Lori, today, and we are going to dive into the Brazilian Grand Prix. And holy cow, do we need a therapy session after that wildness? Let's just give you a sneak peek. Lando inches closer to the championship, and Max Verstappen pulls off some miracle from starting from the pit lane to podium. Wow. I mean, heart pounding. Wow. But first, let's kind of start with the beginning of the weekend. Now, I apologize in advance if I miss some things because, my gosh, the last 24 hours have been psycho. Which, if you're new to Formula One, welcome to the Brazilian Grand Prix. You can expect this every year. And let me tell you something. It did not disappoint. So let's just start with let's say it's called pre-race festivities going into the weekend. So we, of course, have Thursday Media Day. Charles Leclerc has finally proposed to Alex. And how cute was it? He used Leo Leclerc, their little long-haired blondie dachshund, and he had a dog bone made that said, Dad wants to know if you'll marry him. Super cute. That was the talk of the town in the media center, of course, because Leclerc was involved in the media session this week. So he was beaming with excitement coming in and also very full of optimism that he could do well this weekend based on how he did in Mexico previous week. Russell and Hamilton were very vocal about Mexico Grand Prix last week in regards to penalties and how the outcome of the penalties given by the stewards on a race weekend can absolutely predict where the championships go. And, the stewards are so cautious about, giving out these penalties like they're just nothing. And I mean, they're absolutely robbing us of great ending races like we had in Mexico. We could have had an excitement thing. The FIA is stumbling around trying to think about if they want to do a two-stop strategy in 26 for tires. I mean, just to create fan involvement. Again, if you want fan involvement, don't throw a yellow flag out or a virtual safety car out when you clearly had a car that was off and out of the way, because that would have provided great excitement last week. Also, we had in Media Day, Zach Brown with McLaren said that he would rather Max win the championship than favor either Lando or Oscar. I'm like, really? Come on. So that was kind of the end of Media Day. And then we get into the sprint shootout, which is the qualifying for the sprint race on Friday late afternoon. And that was kind of spicy. I mean, we had, let's see, I have to pull up my notes because that was so far back that I'm like, pfft. So let's see. The sprint race qualifying, that turned out to be Lando qualified P1 and then Kimi P2, which was fantastic. Kimi Antonelli, Oscar P3, Russell P4, Alonso P5, Max P6, which was very surprising. Stroll P7 and Leclerc P8, Hadjar P9, and Hulkenberg P10. The Red Bull, Max's Red Bull looked really, really off pace. He lost 4/10 in that second sector, and he basically said on the radio, the car is completely broken. It is undrivable. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? It was really, really cute because after that, Max got out of his car and immediately went over to Kimi Antonelli and put his arm around him and told him good job. I mean, Max takes such good care of these rookies. He's like, you're doing just great. I mean, he's fully building them up. That was really great to see. Also leading into this, before we get into the sprint race, also leading into this weekend, we had a couple of Gabby Bortoleto with Steak. He is Brazilian, and he and Max were on a talk show this week, and they talked all about their relationship, how great of friends they have become, their sim racing, to race, to all kinds of things. If you have not watched it, I highly encourage you to go and find that interview. That you can find it on YouTube. Also, Sebastian Vettel was in the paddock. Always love to see him. He is, of course, saving the world, and he has F1 Forest he's initiative a part of, which is the rainforest. And he had all the drivers sit down and draw trees, and then they had them all posted with their pictures, and they signed them, and the drivers were all smiley and happy. So it's always great to see him in the paddock. Of course, we're honoring Senna as a part of this, the legend of the sport, and this was his home Grand Prix weekend, so it was really awesome to see some of the drivers do certain things, including Kimi Antonelli visiting his gravesite, which clearly gave him a lot of momentum going into this weekend, as I will unpack. All right, so let's get into the sprint race. Let me start off by saying, wow. So I know you guys know, if you've followed me on, well, again, I told you last week on my first podcast, I actually have another podcast that I do with my two girlfriends, and I talked about F1 all the time on there. And I have a lucky hat that I wear. It's my white hat that I had on the last episode. It's Max's Grand Prix hat from Japan. And I call it my lucky hat this season. I'm kind of a little bit sports superstitious, so I had it on. And I walk in, and I hadn't watched the sprint race. I didn't get a chance to watch it live yesterday on Saturday. And of course, we have a full pack Saturday. You got the sprint race, and then you got qualifying session. We all thought going into it, we were going to have they actually thought it would be a cyclone rainstorm. Where was that cyclone rainstorm? We did have a lot of windy conditions. We did not have a blowing rain, which I was hoping that we would, because, again, always provides entertainment. Well, I had my hat on, and my son walked in the door, and my son is like, you might as well burn that. I'm like, oh, good God, what am I about to watch? And all I can say is, wow. So sprint race, Lando was off to a great start immediately, and then in turn one we had Behrman and Lawson who spun out. And at first we were like, to me it was a racing incident, to be honest. They did have to have a meeting with the stewards following the race, and in the end Behrman did get a penalty. So ridiculous. Kimi Antonelli, man, what a weekend he has had. He was able to keep up with the pace the entire sprint race, with Lando just right behind him on his tail. Then we get to lap 6, and Oscar hits the curb with some water and completely spins out and crashes. I'm like, what is happening? And so, of course, the yellow flags come out, and as soon as the yellow flags come out, next thing you know, Franco Colapinto, he's also crashing out. And then immediately after that, Hülkenberg spins out. Thankfully, Hülkenberg was able to somehow get out of that spin and not hit the wall. But we, of course, ended up with a red flag due to the amount of debris we had between Oscar and Colapinto's spin outs and crashing into the wall. So we had a red flag, got delayed. Okay, so then also in that sprint, we had Charles battling really hard to catch George, but in the end, he was unable to do that. Alonso was super scrappy with Max, just back and forth, just trying to chase him down. And then the last lap, oh my gosh, the last lap, Gabby Bortoleto has this crash, and we can't see it when it's happening, and all you can hear, the announcers are just like, oh my gosh, and then they show us the footage. The car goes airborne into the wall. It was at 57 G's into the wall. I do not know how. He thankfully was okay, but I do not know how he just immediately was fine and walked away from that. It was so unbelievable. I highly, again, encourage you to go back and rewatch that if you've not seen that footage, because that was super scary. So glad he was okay. So because that happened to him, then, of course, that was the end, because that was the last lap of the race. So we ended up with Lando winning. And also, fun fact, no one has ever won. That's the first time at that race that anyone's won from pole in a sprint in the race. So that was great for Lando. And then we had Kimi finish P2. So exciting. Second podium of the season there. Russell P3, Max P4, Charles P5, Alonso P6, Hamilton P7, Gasly P8. So those round out your top 8, get points in the sprint race. So that was your sprint race for the Saturday. Whew. So then post sprint press conference. So then they take a break. In case you're new to Formula One, they take a break after that. And then they will do qualifying a few hours later. So I did not know if they were going to be able to get Bortoletto's car fixed because that thing was in a million pieces. I wasn't really worried about Oscar's car. It was damaged, but it was minimal damage. But in the post-sprint race press conference, I thought it was funny because we had we had the winners. They had the third place. So of course we had Lando, Kimi, and Russell in the post press conference. A reporter asked Lando about throwing water up at turn 3 that then came back on the track. Of course, that's where Kimi was right behind him, but then Oscar stumbled across it. That's where he spun out and hit the wall, the same turn. So they asked him, and Lando, of course, was like, well, that just kind of happens when you have those little corners, and it dives in there. And Kimi then responded back with, I did get water splashed in my visor. But my favorite, good old George Russell, always provides entertainment. He says, I thought it was a bit like Mario Kart. Throw banana up in the air. This guy, he's the smartest guy on the grid. I just thought that was so funny. Okay, so let's talk about then qualifying for the race. So that starts up later on the afternoon, on the Saturday afternoon yesterday. So so first off, it was not raining, but the wind was extremely crazy. It was going at a crosswind. And so when you have those crosswinds, then you have the downforce on the cars is really affected because of the wind that was occurring. I think all of us were extremely shocked. So we have Q1 starts, and Max does one run, is really nowhere, does another run, tries to do some cool down runs, and then his final push lap, he waits till the very end and he's out. I mean, P16 out, doesn't make it into Q2. I believe that I just completely stopped watching qualifying after that. And I'm probably not alone with that. I think pretty much everyone, Formula One, was like, I'm done. I mean, what is happening right now? That was absurd. I just completely checked out. Then and just a fact about that is the last time, because Yuki also did not make it out of Q1. The last time that neither Red Bull made it out of Q1, like both Red Bulls didn't make it out of Q1, was 2006. That just goes to show you. It's crazy town. And then also, that was only Max's second time out of his 228 races that he failed to make it out of Q1. That was the first time that it was because of lack of pace. Typically, it was because, whatever reason, like the car breaks down or a red flag comes out or something dumb like that. So already we were like, just sickening gut feeling. Like, I'm just like, I basically took off my hat and I'm like, I'm done. So then we'll skip down to Q3, and crazy was about Q3 too, is Lando was completely looking off pace in the beginning of Q3. He was way down, I want to say almost a 10. And I was not knowing if he was going to make it to pole. And at one point we had several different people. We had Kimi Antonelli again up there. I thought he could get pole, which would have been crazy. But in the end, Lando was able to pull off the pole. And then Kimi was P2. Leclerc, good job. Leclerc was able to get to P3, Oscar P4, Hajar P5, Russell P6, Lawson P7, and then Behrman P8. Once again, amazing job. Gasly P9 and Hulkenberg P10. There's your top 10 to start the race on Sunday. So, of course, Hamilton was not feeling that great about it. Obviously, his car was not feeling great. He did not make it into the top 10. But look how many rookies qualified in the top 10 this week. I mean, holy cow, that was amazing. And Behrman, of course, got out of Q1 and Q2. He looked to be at the top of the top four in each of those sessions. So it was really great to see. All right. So then finally, then we get notification late last night before the race started on Sunday today as I'm recording this, and Max's car will be starting from pit because he is having a setup and engine change. I'm like, can Max pull off a miracle like he did last year where he went from P17 in the rain to winning the race? I don't know. Who knows? So that was really great to know that. So I at least had some expectations coming into the race today that could happen. Also let's see. Also, what else was going to happen? We weren't expecting probably rainy conditions, but weren't really sure coming into the race today. Again, the wind was going to be another kind of big thing for that. And so let's get into the race. So this morning, I was feeling completely optimistic. So this is why you see me wearing my Max Verstappen Unleash the Lion jacket, because it brought me great luck in Austin. And I was like, never know, could pull out all odds. The race gets started. And of course, Max is starting from the pit lane. Esteban Ocon's also starting from the pit lane behind Max. And so the race begins, and Gabby Bortoleto, bless his heart, first lap in, crashes out, and out comes the safety car. So Max manages to avoid that. Under the safety car, Max started on the hard tire. Most of the field, I would say it was a split. There were some mediums, there were some softs, but when the safety car flag happened pretty early on with Gabby, Max had already started to make up places going into even in lap one. He had started building. So he made that by the time they got to the restart, Max went ahead and went in and got new tires. And he was at that point, I think I want to say P13 from the pit, mind you. Then we have the restart. Now the restart was absolutely insane. You had Kimi and Oscar and let's see, you had Lando, of course, out front, but then you had Kimi, Leclerc, and Oscar, all three deep. And I mean, I kind of felt bad for Kimi because he really had nowhere to go. And he looked to his left and he's got Leclerc coming on from the outside. And then he looks to his right and he's got Oscar there on the inside. And Kimi was ahead of Oscar at the apex, but Oscar, they hit, and I felt terrible for Leclerc. Leclerc spins off, hits the wall, tire goes flying. Oscar, he's gets spun back pretty far back, and let's see. I mean, Kimi barely he basically aborts the lap too, and barely manages to miss the wall, but then comes back on track. So, of course, Leclerc is DNF'd for the race because of the tire. During all of that, Max manages to climb like 9 places before he is like to P9 by this point, before then he gets another tire changed to the medium tire. So I had to make notes because there's just so much going on in this race. All right, then Hamilton, let's see. He first bumps, and when that's all happening behind, then you got Hamilton. He kind of first has a little small bump with signs, but then he finally hits Alpine in the front. He ends up with a broken suspension, and so he has to take his car in and get the front end changed. He does manage to come back on track, but good God, poor Hamilton, he's had such a bad race. Eventually, he does have to retire the car, so that happened there. Okay, so the battle, then it just keeps going. Max just keeps going, and he just keeps getting higher and higher. The first kind of like pits, let's say stop strategies, people start pitting and changing their tires. At one point, Max was then leading the race because of the tire changes. Then, of course, Max has to pit again because he had, eventually have to change tires in those conditions. So then he keeps going. And then it was so cute on the radio. I think, I've got to bring it up because it was awesome. Some of my favorite radio conversations were Max's engineer, GP, comes on the radio and he goes, "Something I didn't think I'd say to you this morning, Max, that you'd be starting from pit lane and now you're leader." He said, "Yeah, not bad." That was awesomeness. And then let's go back to my notes. Okay, so Russell really did try to fight Max a lot when he got back into contentions, but again, he kind of just got out of the way, and Max was just faster than him in that last stint. Max changed to soft tires, and he was just like going after it. Bono came on the radio to Kimi Antonelli, his engineer, on 4 laps left, and he said, "I will leave you to it," because Max was just on the charge. And so eventually he knew that Max was going to be right on Kimi's tail. And he was. And let me tell you, what a battle that was at the end. I mean, we were on the edge of our seats. Thrilling, thrilling, thrilling. You've got the 4-time world champion in your mirrors if you're Kimi Antonelli, and you're P2. And you're like, "I've got this." And Kimi had such an amazing drive. Unbelievable. I know we have said that he is not ready for this position he's in with Mercedes, all this hype, but he proved that this weekend that he is ready for it. He was so great at defending against Max and staying in the pace that Max's car was on super fast pace. He was on soft tires. He was going, and he was trying to catch him, and Kimi just kept his cool the whole race. So in the end, he wasn't able to catch him. So we had Lando win the race. We had Kimi Antonelli P2, and we had Max Verstappen P3. Max immediately got out of his car and again went over to Kimi Antonelli, congratulated him immediately. I looked at my husband during this race and I was like, I am so excited that Kimi has Max on the podium with him this week, because he's really going to give him all the flowers he needs, build his confidence, tell him how great he was. The celebration is going to be amazing, which it was. They're on the podium. Max is spraying him with champagne, and they're just smiles so big around. That was so awesome to see. So, and then I watched the press conference afterwards, and it was so cool because even one of the reporters asked Max, what does it mean? What kind of advice would you give Kimi on how he's doing and where he's come? And you immediately have always been so great at boosting all these rookies up. What kind of tell us a little bit about that? Max just kind of said, look, we all have good races and bad races in your rookie season. It's really hard to bounce off of those emotions and do well and pick yourself up. And he did really great. And I'm really proud of him. And it was just like Mama Bear, or Papa Bear, I should say, attitude, which I just love. So it's just really crazy to me that we ended up Max finishing 10 seconds behind Lando from P20, guys, from the pit lane. And he saved 11 seconds under the first virtual safety car, and could have really, and then he ended, he fought back from 11 seconds during that virtual safety car, and then he ended up with a puncture. Forgot that part. See, too much has happened. Had a puncture and had to go change his tires. What if that wouldn't have happened? He could have won that race. 10 seconds behind Lando, starting from pit lane. I was I did not see that coming. When I woke up this morning, did not see that coming. So now the battle is on for a Constructors' Championship as well for team standings. We have Mercedes now ahead by 34 points, and then Red Bull, and then Ferrari. How did that change in just a blink of an eye, too? So that is on. And Lando's up for the charge. I mean, he is now a full race lead in the championship. Pretty good cushion there. And next week will be Vegas, baby. So we'll see how that goes for next week. Vegas is a different track. It's a cooler track. It's colder. It's at nighttime. It always produces great racing as well. Whew. I'm telling you, my heart is still racing from this morning from this race. It was I mean, just so exciting to watch. So if you did not watch it, boy, you better go find it because it was exciting to watch, something to see, adrenaline pumping, and we definitely needed therapy after this session. So thanks for joining me today, and I will see you next time for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Bye.